In October 1957, a small metal sphere called Sputnik started orbiting Earth, beeping away and sending shockwaves around the world. That single satellite didn't just mark humanity's first step into space, it ignited one of the most extraordinary competitions in human history. The space race between the United States and Soviet Union would reshape our world, push technology to unprecedented heights, and ultimately take humans to another world. But it was about far more than just exploration. This was Cold War competition playing out among the stars, where each rocket launch carried the weight of competing ideologies. I'm Nathan Gale, and you're watching History Deciphered. Now let's get started. Today, we're diving into a period where political tension drove innovation at breakneck speed. We'll explore how the space race emerged from the ashes of World War II, examine the stunning series of firsts that captivated the world, and consider the legacy that continues to shape our lives today. It all began after World War II, when both superpowers recruited German rocket scientists who had developed the terrifying V-2 rockets. In the Soviet Union, a brilliant engineer named Sergei Korolev took the lead as chief designer. Working in secret, his name wasn't even revealed to the public until after his death. Korolev would mastermind a series of achievements that left America scrambling to catch up. That fateful October day in 1957, when Sputnik reached orbit, Americans looked up with a mix of wonder and dread. This wasn't just a scientific milestone. It demonstrated Soviet ability to potentially deliver nuclear weapons across continents. As historian Walter McDougall noted, no event since Pearl Harbor set off such repercussions in public life. America's response was swift but embarrassing. Their first satellite attempt, Vanguard TV-3, exploded on the launch pad that December, earning humiliating nicknames like Sputnik in newspapers worldwide. The United States finally got Explorer 1 into orbit in January 1958. But by then, the Soviets had established a commanding lead. The Soviet Union kept the hits coming. In 1959, their Luna 2 probe became the first spacecraft to reach the moon. But their crowning achievement came on April 12, 1961, when Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, orbiting Earth in Vostok 1 and returning safely. Gagarin, with his boyish smile, became an international celebrity and powerful symbol of supposed Soviet technological superiority. America was now urgently playing catch-up. Alan Shepard became the first American in space just weeks after Gagarin, but his 15-minute suborbital hop paled in comparison to Gagarin's orbital flight. The United States needed something dramatic, a goal so ambitious it would leapfrog all previous achievements. President John F. Kennedy provided exactly that on May 25, 1961, addressing Congress with words that still resonate. I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. This was an extraordinary declaration. At that moment, America had accumulated just 15 minutes of human spaceflight experience. The technology to reach the moon didn't exist. The rockets weren't powerful enough. We didn't know how to navigate there, how to land, or even if lunar soil would support the weight of a spacecraft. Kennedy was essentially saying, we're going to do the impossible, and we're going to do it in less than 9 years. What followed was the largest peacetime technological project in American history. The Apollo program eventually employed 400,000 people and cost approximately $25 billion, about $175 billion in today's money. It drove innovation across countless fields, from computing to materials science, while creating new management techniques for complex projects. Meanwhile, both nations continued racking up achievements. John Glenn became the first American to orbit Earth in February 1962. The Soviets launched the first woman into space, Valentina Tereshkova, in June 1963. Something NASA wouldn't match for another 20 years. The space race extended to spacewalks too, with Soviet cosmonaut Alexei Leonov stepping outside his spacecraft in March 1965, followed by American Ed White 3 months later. But the path to the stars proved deadly for both nations. In January 1967, astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee perished in a fire during a ground test of their Apollo 1 spacecraft. The Soviet program experienced its own tragedy when cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov died during the Soyuz 1 mission in April 1967 when his parachute failed during re-entry. By 1968, though, the momentum had shifted. The Soviets struggled with their N-1 moon rocket, experiencing multiple catastrophic failures that they kept secret from the world. Meanwhile, NASA methodically solved problem after problem. In December 1968, Apollo 8 carried the first humans to orbit the moon, capturing the iconic Earthrise photograph that would become a powerful symbol of our planet's fragility. Then came the moment that would forever define the space race. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the lunar surface in the Eagle lunar module, while Michael Collins orbited above. An estimated 600 million people, 1/5 of humanity, watched as Armstrong stepped onto another world and delivered those immortal words. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. 5 more successful lunar landings followed, ending with Apollo 17 in December 1972. 12 Americans walked on the moon, the only humans to have visited another world. The feat remains unmatched over 50 years later. As American success in reaching the moon became undeniable, the space race began to evolve. In 1975, the Apollo-Soyuz test project saw American and Soviet spacecraft dock in orbit, with astronauts and cosmonauts shaking hands in space, a powerful symbol of cooperation during the Cold War. This mission marked the beginning of a new era, setting the stage for later collaborative projects, including the International Space Station. But why did this all happen? The space race emerged directly from Cold War tensions and had deep military roots. The R-7 rocket that launched Sputnik was developed primarily as an intercontinental ballistic missile to deliver nuclear warheads. Similarly, America's early rockets were adapted from military designs. Space achievements became what political scientist John Lewis Gaddis called a peculiarly appropriate form of competition for the nuclear age. It was dangerous, but not too dangerous. It was expensive, but not prohibitively so. It was competitive, but offered benefits that transcended competition. The domestic impacts were enormous. In the United States, the Sputnik crisis triggered wide-ranging reforms. Congress passed the National Defense Education Act of 1958, pouring funds into science and engineering education. NASA was established that same year as a civilian space agency, separate from military programs. For the Soviet Union, space achievements were powerful propaganda tools demonstrating the supposed superiority of communist science and education. Cosmonauts were celebrated as national heroes and dispatched globally on goodwill tours to showcase Soviet accomplishments. Both nations used space achievements to bolster their international standing, particularly in seeking influence among newly independent nations in Africa and Asia. The ability to put objects and people in space served as a powerful demonstration of technological capability and modernity. The technological spin-offs have been profound and far-reaching. The miniaturization requirements for spacecraft accelerated the development of integrated circuits and microchips that eventually enabled personal computers and smartphones. Materials developed for spacecraft, from memory foam to scratch-resistant lenses, found countless civilian applications. Weather satellites revolutionized meteorological forecasting. Communication satellites transformed global telecommunications. Medical technology advanced through systems designed to monitor astronaut health, leading to improvements in heart monitors, CAT scanners, and telemedicine. Even everyday items, like cordless tools, were refined through space program requirements. Perhaps the most enduring effect has been the inspiration of generations of scientists, engineers, and dreamers. The Apollo missions demonstrated that seemingly impossible goals could be achieved through focused effort and ingenuity. Many leaders in technology industries cite the space program as a key influence on their career choices. The space race also transformed humanity's self-perception. The Earthrise and blue marble photographs provided the first views of Earth as a unified, fragile sphere, without visible political boundaries, contributing significantly to environmental awareness. As astronaut William Anders, who took the Earthrise photo, later reflected, "We came all this way to explore the moon, and the most important thing is that we discovered the Earth." Different perspectives on the space race reveal its complexity. The traditional American narrative emphasizes the triumphant comeback story. Despite early Soviet leads, American ingenuity ultimately prevailed, with the moon landing representing the definitive victory. The Soviet perspective emphasized their pioneering achievements: the first satellite, first man in space, first woman in space, first spacewalk, as demonstrations of socialist scientific education. Modern historians have questioned both narratives. Some argue that defining the space race as culminating with the moon landing artificially frames the competition to highlight American success. Others note that both space programs suffered from inefficiencies and political pressures. Critics have questioned the enormous expense during a period of domestic social unrest and poverty. Gil Scott-Heron's spoken word piece, "Whitey on the Moon," pointedly contrasted the lunar landing with continuing struggles of African Americans. "I can't pay no doctor bills, but Whitey's on the moon." The space race represents a unique convergence of geopolitical competition, technological innovation, and human aspiration. Its legacy extends far beyond the physical artifacts in museums or the footprints left on the lunar surface. The technologies developed during this period fundamentally transformed how we communicate, navigate, predict weather, and understand our planet. Perhaps most importantly, the space race expanded humanity's sense of possibility. It demonstrated that seemingly impossible challenges could be overcome through focused effort, scientific advancement, and political will. As we face contemporary global challenges, from climate change to pandemic response, the lesson that apparently insurmountable problems can yield to human ingenuity remains powerfully relevant. The competition that began with the beep of Sputnik has evolved into international cooperation. Today's International Space Station, with its multinational crews, stands as a testament to how former rivals can collaborate in space. As new nations develop space capabilities and commercial ventures expand beyond Earth, the technological and symbolic importance of the original space race continues to shape humanity's ongoing relationship with the final frontier. Looking back, we can see the space race was never just about getting to the moon. It was about proving what humans can achieve when we combine vision, resources, and determination. Even when motivated by competition, the stars called, and together we answered.